Hi, everyone. Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here. I'm Austin Caswell, the technician for the Digital Fabrication Studio. I would like to remind everyone that there will be an orientation here tomorrow morning in Schirmer Hall at 8:45. Welcome to our summer faculty lecture series. Sorry. All right. Welcome to our summer faculty lecture series. I want to welcome our virtual participants watching tonight, as well as our Board of Trustees and National Council. Thank you for your support. Tonight we'll be hearing from Stephen Yazzie, who will be teaching in the painting department this week, and Kagen Sound, who is teaching in furniture design and wood. It's my honor to introduce them tonight. Before we begin, please silence your cell phones. Anderson Ranch acknowledges that our campus resides on the traditional ancestral territory of the Ute people, who have called the Roaring Fork Valley and beyond home for over 800 years. Through our mission to promote a wide range of arts, cultures, and voices, we commit to partner with and honor the indigenous ancestors and residents of this sacred land where we learn, work, and create. We will first hear from Stephen Yazzie. Stephen J. Yazzie is a multidisciplinary artist working across painting, installation, video, film, photography, and community collaboration. He's a member of the Navajo Nation and a veteran of the Gulf War, serving honorably with the United States Marine Corps. Yazzie's notable exhibitions include the National Gallery of Art, Museum of Modern Art, New York, National Museum of American Indian Art, New York, Museum of Contemporary Art, Denver, National Gallery of Canada, Ottawa, Art Gallery of Ontario, Toronto, Phoenix Art Museum, Scottsdale Museum of Contemporary Art, and the Tucson Museum of Art. Please welcome Stephen Yazzie.
How's everybody doing? Close your eyes. So I'm here today to teach, or this week to teach the abstract painting class, so I thought I'd start with photography. As mentioned, thank you for the introduction. As was mentioned, I'm a multidisciplinary artist. I'm based in Denver. I've been in Denver for about 9 years, and in this region in the Southwest, in Phoenix, for a lot longer, and but call this place home and feel very connected to this region, the land, the community, and so it's great to be with you tonight. This was a shot I took of recently. Actually, I wasn't even thinking about this in terms of the presentation, but I was like, oh, this is a great cover image. But you know, a lot of my work addresses or responds to cultural, environmental activities that are happening in the land. And this one area, this is the top of a meander that goes into this Antero Reservoir, which has just been drained, and it's been drained into another reservoir that's part of our water system in Denver. In order to save the water that we have, this Antero has a very wide surface area, and the Cheeseman, where the water got moved to or allocated or allowed to get diverted to, is a deeper lake, so it's gonna keep that water a little bit longer. But I just thought it was a great shot to kick this thing off. And I wanted to start with photography because it's been an extension of my work from video and video installation work. I don't have any video or sound in the presentation, just to kind of, you know, keep it bare bones and simple, but you can go back and see the work that this relates to. But this particular image I wanted to kind of start off with because I grew up on the Navajo reservation, and this is a shiprock, or Tsebetai, which is in Navajo called the rock with wings. And it's landscape and landforms like this that have, you know, I've grown up around and have been heavily influenced kind of visually and kind of, as I mentioned, culturally responding to things. But this particular image I shot a couple years ago, and it was part of an investigation in video. But during that process, I realized the still image really carried a lot of weight and beauty to it. But also it carries a lot of story. And this particular region, this rock, this combination of the night sky and this formation, for me, on the outset or just kind of on the front, it looks, yes, it's a pretty image, but for me, it kind of holds a lot more. There's stories of the way the universe was born through the actions of Coyote by releasing and throwing a bag of crystals into the sky because he was so frustrated at how long it was taking the Holy Ones to place each star and constellation. The rock itself has there's stories of monster birds living up on the top that were flying down and killing community members, and mostly men, and eating the men. And so Monster Slayer, one of the twin boys from Changing Woman, killed this monster bird and created first owl and first eagle. And also how the formation came to be. Of course, there's kind of a Western, idea from science and how we can think about, geology and time, the Earth and its time scale. But there's various versions of how this thing came to be, and not to go into too many of these, but just to give you this idea, kind of as a starting point with this series. So photography is relatively new in my practice, but I thought it would be good, since I'm going to be teaching and talking about land and reimagining how we can experience and paint and think about land. I thought it'd be nice to show you the areas that were very influential in places that I grew up, and that are both like personally important and kind of culturally significant. And you'll see as we get to the end of the presentation how some of these formations have kind of emerged in this new work. There's also something too about this landscape. When I go back, I tend to go back at least once or twice a year and try to revisit places that I grew up in and grew up around, and places that are significant and have stories attached to them, but also places that I used to play in and that were monumental and in scale. And then when I go back and they're very different now, and my relationship with them has changed over time, and trying to find those kind of like mysterious or enigmatic or things like future. I love the tagging on this. In the rock itself, it says "no shit," and it was so you're out in this beautiful place, and then you find these current carvings in the land. This is a piece called Yumi Weish, and it's an installation of. I took this Let Us Grow tower that I have at home, and I extended it twice its size for this installation, and it was for an exhibition at the Arizona State University Art Museum, and it was for this. It's called New Earthworks, and the exhibition was really looking at sustainability and our relationship to land, especially in the Sonoran Desert region. And so I was inspired to collect seeds, amaranth seeds from the region, and grow them and let the life cycle of these plants grow. And so what you're seeing is the chemical compound of amaranth in a sand painting here down below, and then the plant just kind of grows through its cycle. And just the story of that kind of intersection of technology and site-specific, food sources. I did another version of this in Arvada, at the Arvada Art Center a couple years ago. And in this reimagining of it, I planted edible flowers And then we have the chemical compound of dopamine in the sand painting. One of my favorite things is to see how far I can go to push, like bringing natural objects into the museum space. This piece called Elders was part of an exhibition at the MCA, the Museum of Contemporary Art in Denver, a couple years ago. And it's one of a few works that were in the show, but what I found so interesting for me in this piece was that it was created, so it's meant to look like a fallen tree, but if you look closely, it's made out of multiple tree parts, and there's about 12 different species of tree that were found here in Colorado. And I pieced it together a lot like a Lego set, and it actually breaks down pretty small in storage. And it's traveling next year for an exhibition at Notre Dame at the Racklin Murphy Museum. But the piece itself also contains, or what's played over the top of it, are 12 voices of indigenous elders from communities not only in and around Denver, but from the region. And the audio that you hear, you can really only hear as you get closer to the tree. There's a directional sound piece that plays right over the tree form. So while it looks like something, dead and just pulled into the gallery, it's, I pieced this thing together in a way to make it look that way, but also highlighting the different voices and communities that have lived in this region. And the audio track that you can hear, and you can hear this on my website if you ever visit, is stories about community and place and identity and relationship to land. And I've just edited this way so it sounds like one long story that's being told through many different voices. Aha, Betsy, here it is. This is a project I started in 2006. This is the newest version of this project called Drawing and Driving. And on a residency kind of like this in Maine of that year, of that summer, I kind of fell into this project kind of by accident. And I created this go-kart, gravity-based go-kart, no pedals, and it was more like a soapbox car. And it was a way for me to get down the hill quickly, and at the end of the day, and every day that I did it, I decided I needed to add some other component or some reason why I needed to have this or justify it. It was also to justify it to my wife. She's like, "What are you building?" I'm like, "Building a go-kart." Not really, it's a drawing machine. But I attached an easel to it and started sharing it with the community. And so every day or every other day, we would draw and drive together. And it became this exchange and this conversation around drawing and around kind of body through space and about, what drawing is, what's the influence of the technology of movement, what's your relationship to the landscape as you're moving through it. It became so many different things, and it also became just fun and silly, to do. So I brought the bike with me, the drawing vehicle. So if you see some of us this week, drawing around the campus, you'll know what we're doing. So this is the drawings from this were from the Hayman fire area, which was an area outside of Denver, I'm forgetting exactly the location, but the location was significant because it became one of the largest forest fires to impact Colorado at the time. And so this was 24, I think it was in 2004 that it happened. There was a 20-year anniversary had come up. But it's in this location, you could see kind of the landscape. That was all forest that was burned down. So there's new growth coming in, but it's coming in really slowly. Over the years, the project has evolved into drifting and painting, so why not? So I started doing this a couple years ago, and my raft, and I have another smaller raft that you can bounce around in as you're moving downriver. But this also became kind of another project that's related to the drawing and driving, but it's now done on water. So this is the project I did on the San Juan last year, and there's video that's associated with all of this, both the drawing and driving work and the drifting and painting work. There's always video that accompanies this project. So I took some stills up on the top right here so you can kind of see the sequence. But I think I had 12, a little bit more than 12 drawings, but I showed 12 works, and each work is a mile marker on the river. Excuse me. And that particular region, too, we were floating through, is the river itself becomes like this demarcation, or this line between the Navajo Nation on one side and Bureau of Land Management on the other, although it's the same looking landscape. So this river becomes something kind of significant in the way that it cuts through these territories. But it's an ongoing project that I love to do. And it also is, starts to lead into this way of painting in my new series, where it's very kind of reactionary and intuitive, and there's the impossibility of capturing, something like, to make it look, I'm not painting, the rock or the river, as you might, see it, but as you're traveling through it. This is an installation called Constellation, and it references Cassiopeia and Nahokos Biadi, which are two. So Cassiopeia, as we know, is a Greek goddess, and this star system is, this arrangement of stars is attached to her, as well as Nahokos Biadi, which is the female archetype of, it's a Navajo female constellation. And I just love the idea that these constellations and these mountains and these kind of natural formations are things that we often share culturally, and stars especially. There's stories that are, from all different communities that can be connected to, specific constellations. So on this particular piece, they also became instruments. And again, I didn't have sound for this, but the ceramic objects that you're seeing were created by just big flat slabs of clay thrown up against rocks and trees, and then pulled back into the studio and kind of brought back into their form, and allowing the material or the clay to really kind of inform the vessel itself. So all the texture and the kind of the character of these objects is really informed by the kind of that experience of pushing into a natural form. So it's in the arrangement of the constellation, and I played each one of these as an instrument, and so in the installation you can hear the sound of each object being played as first it's one, and then it becomes 1 and 2, 1, 2, and 3, and then all through 5, you can hear all 5, and then it cascades or it fades out back to the 1. And it's a cycle of sound, for the sonic experience, but it's become an important part of this new investigation. And there's for me, I see this potential with not only ceramics and performance, but larger constellation installations, larger kind of reimagining these objects on the ground and in relation to each other. So mentioning ceramics, I've just started getting into it on my own. The work here actually was done with a ceramic artist friend of mine who brought me into this kind of process. And I've continued on, and I'm right now in a residency at a place called Community Clay in Denver. And it's a 6-month residency that I was able to create with Community Clay. So I could come in and get some classes and, kind of learn a little bit more about the medium and the process and the alchemy. And so these are just some things I'm messing with right now. And this is a little bit of the process of that, throwing the clay onto a tree and creating a form. And now I have this whole series of bark that I'm working on. That's my daughter helping me in the studio. But this is relatively new, a new body of work, but I wanted to show it just because I thought I was really excited about it. Now let's get into some painting. This new series, as you see it, you'll see it's maybe not pure abstraction, but for me it's like hallucinogenic abstraction. It's somewhere kind of in between a form that's recognizable, that's being brought together or breaking apart. This process and this whole series began about 4 years ago, and it really has just started to become one of these kind of principal areas of focus. I've really enjoyed like this process, and that's so what I'm discovering in my own process I'm hoping to share this week. Not that I'm pushing anyone to paint like I'm painting, but to find find those marks and gestures and what are your natural inclinations in your own work. And this for me has become something signature in that it's I have no I don't sketch these things out. They unfold and happen over time. There's layers and layers of this that happen. There's kind of a process that I've and a structure that I've built and rules that I've given myself in creating these. But each one of these has become something kind of magical all their own. And I'm really excited about this series. This was the first large triptych in the series. Actually, it's a little larger than the screen, but it, for me, I'm just really, the excitement about this too, because of the possibility of where this can go is really, has really been fun for me. And these are new pieces. This was last year. Actually, this should be 25. This was last year. And this is the newest one I just created a couple weeks ago, or just finished. It should be 26. I was rushing this slide presentation. But yeah, this is first song. Actually, this piece is on its way, or it's where I'm talking to the National Gallery about an acquisition for this piece. So I'm super excited that this work is becoming, that there's a greater interest in it. But for me, it's just the joy of painting and the joy of being in kind of that headspace while creating this work. It's been fun to find this magic again. And I think for anybody out there that's been making work for a long time, you have these ebb and flows in your life and in your work. And when you hit on something that really brings you that joy, I hope you continue it. And lately it's been this series. So that's a little about me. Thank you guys so much.
Next, we will hear from Kagen Sound. Kagen Sound has been a full-time puzzle box maker for 25 years. After studying math in college, he gravitated towards the form as an expression of logic and riddles. His puzzle boxes have won numerous awards in the worldwide puzzle collecting community and are considered an art form that intersects with mechanical puzzles and woodworking. Please welcome Kagen Sound.
Hi. It's exciting to be here for another class. I'm also from Denver. I grew up in Denver. I have these memories of when I was a kid and my mom was delivering papers and doing odd jobs, and she'd just drop me off at the toy store and I would play with puzzles all afternoon. I went to Colorado College and was a math major, and all the while I'm studying math, my hands are like fidgeting and itching to build things. So the summer of, I think this was 1999, drove cross country to Los Angeles, California to mentor woodworking for the first time with a family friend. this Volvo was the hand-me-down car that was on its last leg. I mean, it literally did have duct tape holding it together in spots. There was one window roller that rolled down all the windows inside. And my sister and I, who actually is here with us, we teamed up and painted it like a zebra. So there's some kind of rebellious spirit that kind of lived in myself, and I think in my family. There was some need to sort of go against the grain of tradition in some way, but woodworking is an interesting thing because there's a lot of tradition built into it. But puzzle boxes, which is what I'm sort of wanting to get into and learn, there was no one I knew in the country where I could actually learn it. So I'm just going to learn woodworking and see where it takes me. This concept I kind of was obsessed with at the time involved this box I called the pinwheel box, and it was something I could never quite build. I first tried to make it in cardboard when I was younger, and then was trying to construct it in wood, and it involved the sides of the box sort of spiraling out different directions in order for it to open up. The final movement allows the lid of it to unlock, and what's hard to tell in the pictures is what's going on is these 4 little plates on each side of the box actually slide simultaneously, diagonally into each other, but also simultaneously out of each other's way. So the movement, to me, was really mesmerizing and cathartic. The final version of it I made actually not far from here in Marble, Colorado, the next summer when I was house sitting and setting up a wood shop for a friend. And I took the summer to make this final version of it at the time. So I thought making this pinwheel box would sort of seal the deal for me. I thought, okay, cool, I got it out of my system. I'm gonna just go on and study more math. It did the opposite. I really then had another idea and another. It kept making me want to build more and more stranger things. I started to kind of get into using these different tools and clamping them down and putting different angles on them, and really creating these shapes. This is based more on a dodecahedron, and the sides of it all rotate. Oops, go backwards here. The sides of it rotate so it opens up eventually. So to kind of get into what a puzzle box is, or why am I even so a lot of you may not even know what they are. It really qualifies as any box that just doesn't open the way you would think. It can be a bunch of movements surrounding it. It can be things that you have to slide in a sequence. It can be even just a trick of some kind, a secret button that you push. So the idea of a box sort of holding a secret in that way was just inherently fascinating to me. At the time, after college, I moved to Portland, Oregon, and just found these sort of goofy, off the beaten path of woodworkers in a co-op, and they all welcomed me in. And they encouraged me just to kind of go for it and do all the different ideas I had. And so I kept coming up with kind of weird ways of using different materials to, in this case I wanted to clamp 6 triangles of wood together and to make a hexagon. And I found a piece of PVC pipe and then shoved the wood into the pipe, and I matched the wood to fit the pipe and glue it together, and then made just tons of hexagons. And this entire box will become a puzzle box. You'll get to see it, but keep in mind, the entire scale of the box is determined by the PVC pipe I found. It was entirely dependent on that. Then cut these circles into the hexagons, and they are arrayed on the top of the box. And you really do have to rotate each of these circles into a triangular pattern to unlock it, to open it up. So this was about 20 years ago when I made it. A lot of my ideas early on were really math-centric. I think I was trying to take the kind of geometry and math concepts in my head and then just see what my fingers would do with it. Like, how could I make it into a real wooden object? And wood is really kind of fun in terms of how you can subdivide it into different colors. You can usually get a couple different interesting colors and then get into the geometry of what's going on with it. More ideas and things involved little pathways that went around a box. And in this case, in these boxes, you slide the panels different directions until you open them up. And you have to follow the trail of wood that goes around it. And then various little patterns and pegs and mazes. This has, all the sides of it have a different little 3x3 maze and peg system that interact with every other side. So you kind of navigate these pegs through the mazes while pushing the panels around, and eventually you can open up the box. And again, these are real mathy, logical ideas I was kind of dwelling on and wanting to see what they look like in a physical form. This is when you get it opened up, it looks like that inside. This was a cool box because you could reprogram it. You could take it apart and then rearrange the sides different ways and essentially create sequences up to 116 moves to unlock it. Some people love this stuff, I mean, and some people really don't. I have most of my friends, I would dream up this sort of thing and build it, and then it'd be the prototype, and I'd be like, do you want to open this really, really cool box? I'm so excited. You know, I'd be really eagerly trying to show my friend, and the first thing my friends had learned to ask me was, well, how many moves is it to open? Is this, you know, and I'd say, well, it's only 57 moves, and they'd hand it back and say, you can show me how it opened. They'd demonstrate it. But outside of that group of friends, there was a community of, I'll wait for this to come on. I met a group of people who really were as enthusiastic about these kind of puzzles as I was right after college as well. And I started attending these puzzle conventions where we'd get together in a different country every year. We'd sit in the hotel lobby, and many of us, we spoke different languages even. I mean, some people didn't necessarily speak English, but the common language was for us to just play with these puzzles quietly in the lobby and hand them around and just have this joyful experience of unlocking these different little things. Later on, not many years later, I started to realize that I could take patterns and subdivide the patterns in different ways and then have those rearranged into new patterns. And that became a really interesting, almost clue story. I don't know if it's a story, it's more like a treasure hunt of how you would unlock a box. So in this case, the pattern on top of this box can shift. Every little slider on top that moves back and forth, and it can be reconfigured into new patterns. And it's really very surprising and to me very magical what it accomplishes when you start to move these around. And I became really enamored with this particular one, and especially because it made a Greek key pattern, I found that to be a really fun solution for this box. So if you build that pattern into the top of the box, you get to open it up. And then later I made a table, did the same thing. Actually made 20 tables that did that, which took up a lot of my time. And it had 6 drawers and they all opened up. It looked like a flower, so I called that one the lotus table. I started to kind of drift away from the real geometry and the visual patterns and the math side of it and get into some more whimsical themes more recently. So this particular box I called the battery-operated box. And I made a wooden box. It's totally locked, doesn't open, and you are given these 4 batteries that are also entirely made of wood. And the batteries, it's interesting, it wasn't, oh, there it goes. The batteries actually do function. They really do operate the box, essentially. It needs these wooden batteries in it just the right way for it to open. A person commissioned me also to make a just epic puzzle desk at one point. And the thing I was really trying to work with and push the limits on is not so much the wood or the material, but the absence of the material. And every time you build a box, there's another component or another material present that starts to present itself as a mechanical a thing that can be utilized mechanically. And so in this case, it's airflow. When you open and close the drawers of this desk, the air is pushed through different parts of it, and it can play an actual song through these organ pipes on the front. It's not like a strong sound. I mean, they're like whistles almost, but you can play an actual tune by opening and closing drawers. And if you play the correct tune, of course, that unlocks part of the desk as well. So this is the other side of the desk where the small drawers each play different notes. And then as well, because this was a piece with many different puzzles layered in, it had some of my geometric transforming puzzles and a musical score in there that I kind of did my own way as well. But this would be a transformation of a checker to a key pattern. This was the sort of switchboard within the desk that would, essentially the air would go through it and it would keep track of which notes were played. So it could memorize, it acted like a memory device to know what song was played. And it would allow the secret compartment to open at the end if you played the right 8 notes. And it could also be reconfigured to another song as well. So it's just very hard to describe in words, but this was me kind of going off the deep end as far as I could go in the direction of logic and math and all the computer stuff. I think there's a part of me that wanted to sort of recreate some form of a computing system. It's essentially like a pneumatic memory board. So more recently, within the last year or two, I've started to kind of look for other ways that wood is surprising and different. And one thing I've noticed that I can kind of push the limits of the boxes more and more with is to have a box that is in appearance very rigid and fixed like you would expect a box to be. But in this case, this box had a very special ability to flex. And if you aligned the tops just right and you pushed on it, it was in fact a giant spring that torqued and then would hold its form. And the lid, which was at one point just a circular lid, turns into a helical lid, and it can unscrew. So that's a side view of it. This, for me, felt really simple compared to the more kind of logical things I used to do, but I started to realize it was just more playful in some ways, because it just did something so unexpected, and it really pushed the shape in a different direction. Oops. And this one I called the Hex Flex, because it was a flexible box. My daughter and I share a love of toads, and we're finding toads we find a toad, at least one or two or three of them every summer. We've already found a few this summer, but as a birthday gift for her, last year I made her a box that has a toad on it. So this is very much kind of a different direction for me as well, because I'm taking a more literal theme and putting it on the box here. But this one is called the Toad Prince. The toad I didn't make personally. This was made by Lisa Max, who was an intern here at Anderson Ranch. And as you can imagine, something called the Toad Prince probably has a sort of fairy tale element to it. And you do, in fact, have to kiss the toad to unlock the box. So it also uses airflow to unlock. The more I've spent time with this, I was inherently fascinated through math and geometry, but the more time I've kind of evolved through doing this, the more it's kind of making me do these more story-like and kind of unusual things. And I wonder if, a puzzle can sort of evolve into other things. It can be a ritual, it can be a sort of a fairy tale or even a riddle of some sort. And I think that's kind of where my mind has been going recently with my work, is how playful can it be? And does it have to be a puzzle? It could be other things too. So that's all I have. Thanks.
We have just a couple minutes for a quick Q&A. So if you have a question for Kagen or for Stephen, please just raise your hand and wait for the mic, and I will bring it by. Okay.
Is this okay if we sit down here? Can you guys see us? Or should we be up?
This is hi, Stephen. This is a question for you. I'm wondering, I suppose, thinking about plein air drawing or painting, and I was thinking about the difference between focusing and being still and then moving through the landscape and capturing it. And I can't imagine, well, I did experience it once, but going through the landscape and trying to capture things. Can you talk a little bit about the difference for you and why it's important to be moving, and just in general the implications of that?
Yeah, I think, thank you, Betsy. There's obviously a tradition of plein air work, and I felt like adding that idea of movement, and I think I mentioned body through space. It becomes this full body experience for me when I'm creating, and in a way, you have to be present, you know, to steer the bike or the car, and then but you're constantly jumping back and forth between that and trying to create something, and it becomes kind of this like absurd, kind of cumbersome experience, but also very fun and immediate. And there's something about that experience for me that I really felt was a reflection of kind of our speed of life, our speed of technology, the way we're moving through the world. But it for me, it just becomes this all-encompassing experience, and understanding that the mark making is also being informed by the movement of the road, and it's the shape of the way the wheel hits the landscape, and the things that are flying in your face, and it almost like you're kind of moving and dancing, you know, with the land, and the land is part making the gesture. So for me, I think ultimately it helps to, for me, it feel like a richer or deeper connection to the experience and to the place, like in the moment. But yeah, maybe a lot of other things too, but I hope that helped answer some of that.
Hi, Kagen. I was really interested about that moment you talked about the puzzle conferences you went to and bringing your boxes. And it seemed to me like some of your beginning very mathematical boxes may have been a way to communicate your a little bit more inaccessible ideas about math to people in a way that they could understand. And I'm wondering if you've ever thought about your boxes as like self-portraits in a way.
A little bit, yeah. I do think there's an element of that to it. There's some, there is some expression of some kind in it that I can't put my finger on it. There's, I guess pun intended, it's that I want to use my hands to kind of put the mental idea into a form. There's a real, I don't know, all I could say is that at that time in my life when I was very young and I got to meet this sort of niche crowd of people and share this, it's like we were all playing in the same sandbox together. We all had this like boyish delight and glee over mechanical things that untangled or opened up or unlocked. I think I am always pondering what the real expression or the real meaning of it is for me. I do think it is a self-portrait in some way, for sure. It seems kind of buried too sometimes. It seems like there's something kind of being unearthed as I go along. So it's continuing to evolve, and there's some part of me coming out of it. That part is really exciting, and I was thinking about that too when you were talking about that, Stephen, with your work and how you're in that state of something new is coming out. I do experience that a lot too, where these just like waves of new things kind of hit me, and it feels like really alive, and there's this vitality in it that's coming out of it. So. hopefully that answers your question.
Hi, I have a question for Kagen. Could you talk a little bit more about how you begin the construction on these boxes, like how you conceptualize them? Like, is there research you're pulling from? Do you make prototypes? Just how do you start these boxes?
Yeah, it's funny. I think inspiration does hit me from different directions. I think I do sort of feel like I am inspired by a lot of other art forms that have nothing to do with what I make. There's a sense of the sort of, I think the puzzle, I want to say it represents maybe more of like a ritual of some kind. I'm sort of designing a ritual or a thing that needs to be performed. So I'm sort of reacting to that, and then the box itself is, there's some sort of design element or something that's intriguing or sculptural about it in some form. So I'm kind of feeling that part out separately. They're sort of in a dance together as I'm designing it. I go kind of from both directions. I'll start with, I'll kind of start from the end towards the beginning and the beginning towards the end when I'm designing it. It's like, how does it look at the very end and what happens going backwards? And then also, what does it start out like and how does it grow into a box from there? So I'm kind of going both directions as I'm designing and prototyping.
This is for Kagan. Sorry. Kagan, have you ever thought of your boxes as like some kind of a mystery that you could design on a human, like an average human scale? And it could become an adventure for somebody who's trapped inside?
Like a story? Have I thought of it as a story?
Yes.
I've tried to write stories sort of like that before, but I've never been able to capture it in like the form of a box, I guess. But I think it'd be really fun to make a room that you had to get out of, you know, reverse it so you're inside the box would be really fun. Someday, I'll have to do that.
Hi, I have a question for Stephen. I was just curious with your paintings if there are times when you're painting from memory or because they're so landscape-esque, if it starts to look like a memory of something and if that's good or bad, if you're trying to avoid it becoming something or how you work with that.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of memory. It's a little bit of intuition. And, you know, definitely, like I showed the photographs earlier on just to give you kind of a sense of what I grew up around and what was, you know, what might have been in my dreams. You know, maybe the dream is also, you know, something that influences the work. But so much of it is, like I'll create something that may begin to look like something that I might remember, like a canyon or a mountain. But then, you know, my intention is also to break it up. And but yeah, I think memory plays a big part in the series for sure. That's Robin, Kagen's sister.
This is for Stephen. Stephen, so you did photography, or you're doing photography and painting, and one, photography is, you know, I don't know, immediate, and you take the picture, although you have to travel, and, you know, I'm sure there's a lot, I know there a lot goes into it, but then painting's very body, you know, body-oriented, and so how do you put the two together in just what you like to do and how one informs the other?
Well, in terms of the painting and this particular series, I intentionally don't use photography or a specific reference. And I try to, for this week, I'm going to encourage everyone to, you know, I mean, of course, it's really easy to kind of look at a landscape or you know, or a photograph of something and work from that. But it's almost like I want it to be purely from my own recollection or my own just trusting myself in that. And with photography, it becomes a little bit more deliberate. And yeah, there is that moment that you kind of have to commit to, and you feel like this is, you know, and when you're looking at a number of images, or when I am trying to find something that has that quality in it that you're looking for, some of that quality, or that, I think it's that I try to see the through line in other works in terms of like what my choices are, and maybe it's hard to describe maybe personal, you know, to something specific, but yeah, for me they're very different. I think the photography really relates more to the video and the installation work, which I didn't really get into. Part of it was because of time and what what I wanted to present. But I love that it's still source material, and I love that it's still the act of body through space, and the way the world, or your perspective of something changes just by taking a few steps. The changing of the light, and there's something that's so cool about that too, and working in that medium. But yeah, but there's a difference. There's a relationship. But they don't, the painting and the photography, this particular series doesn't really, I try to keep them separate in ways. Although I do sometimes exhibit the work together, there's different rules for each medium for me.
Okay. Thank you, Stephen. Thank you, Kagen. As a reminder, we will meet in the cafe at 8:45 a.m. And have our general orientation in Shermer as well. So have a good evening, and thank you for coming.